One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Niels Haugen, and I'm the commander of the I-5 Artificial Intelligence team. Hosting with me is Sophia Pung, a member of the AI team, who is also currently working on a chatbot that can answer ROTC-related questions using information from Air Force documents. However, today we have the privilege to learn about AI and the future of warfare from an industry expert.
Dr. Ben Zweibelson is the director of the U.S. Space Command's Strategic Innovation Group at Peterson Space Force Base, Colorado. A retired Army infantry officer with combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, he earned the Combat Infantryman Badge, Master Parachutist Badge, Pathfinder Badge, Air Assault Badge, the Ranger Tab, 4 Bronze Star medals, and various awards and citations in his 22 years of combined service. He previously worked for the U.S. Special Operations Command for 7 years, running all design education, theory, and outreach for Joint Special Operations University. He has a doctorate in philosophy, 3 master's degrees, and an undergraduate degree in graphic design. He is also the author of multiple books.
And before we begin, just a short disclaimer. Dr. Zweibelson's thoughts and comments are his own and do not reflect or represent any official position of the United States Space Command, the Department of Defense, or the U.S. government. And without further ado, I'm excited to give the floor to Dr. Ben Zweibelson.
Great. Niles and Sophia, thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor to talk to cadets and talk to the next generation that will be dealing with a lot of the challenges that we're talking about, we will be talking about today. So right out the gate, let's go ahead and test that warning. Once again, that I'm providing my opinions, my thoughts, my beliefs, and my research here, but it absolutely is not an official position of the United States government or U.S. Space Command, because let's start with 3 provocative statements I'm going to throw out about the future of warfare right now. First, humanity has had about 40 centuries of civilization, and with that came warfare in various forms, right? So we've had war for 40 centuries. Provocative statement number 1, we are in the last century of those 40 where we will have control over war, all right? Provocative statement number 2, the last natural-born, unmodified human soldier may have already been born and is living and breathing right now. That's provocative statement number 2. Provocative statement number 3, again, my own opinions, is that AI, specifically artificial general intelligence, and the things that come after that, will be a greater existential threat than even nuclear weapons, and this will unfold in this century. Now, with that, tell me what your thoughts are. Which one do you want to start with? What are you thinking?
I think that second statement, the last born unmodified soldier is already alive. That's pretty crazy because we're all cadets here, so could be one of us. And also, what do you mean by unmodified?
Great. So we'll dive into that. And let me put up on SlideShare right here. I've got to put my reading glasses on for this. Just bear with me. So we will do share screen and we'll do this. So I want to put a few things up just as we talk, and then we'll continue from here. So just for our audience and for those that maybe are picking this up on YouTube later, here's a series of articles and one book that are either available right now, the hyperlinks are there, or the top 2 are coming out in May of 2024, or essentially next month. And so the graphics that I'm going to be showing you during this engagement consist of things that come out of both of these. So the top 2, War Becoming Phantasmal, and the next article, Breaking the Newtonian Fetish, those are coming out through the Marine Corps University Press. One is their Expeditions with Marine Corps University Press, and the second one is with their Journal of Advanced Military Studies, or JAMS. So there's 2 separate publications by the Marine Corps. The articles that are out right now, and this is where we're going first. So The Last Natural-Born Human Fighter. This is from Whale Songs of Wars Not Yet Waged. This is also at Marine Corps University Press, and it's available right now. It was published late last year. And we're going to talk a bit about AI with the Singleton Paradox, which is another Marine Corps University Press. So I've been very busy with them lately. There's an article on reconceptualizing the space domain, and that's over at Air University Press. It's a Shriver's paper that came out last year, and you can download the entire thing. And then the other two, there's a book, Beyond the Pale, and I'll show that after I close out of this. This is through Air University Press. It's a free book. I don't make any money off of any of this stuff. It's government property, and you can get the book mailed to you if you live in the United States or you have an international mailing address that's APO by emailing Michael Rojas, and it's shown right there, michael.rojas@au.af.edu. Anybody can order the book, and it'll show up in about a couple of weeks for free. And then the last one is I've got a 4-part series in the Australian Defence Force's Contemporary Issues in Air and Space Power on why do militaries fail to innovate and stifle ideas. So part 1 is linked there. Part 2 just came out last week, and part 3 and 4 will be coming out later in May and then in June. So all the stuff is out there. It's all free, and we'll be talking about it today. So let me go to, let's see. We'll go to this one here. So talking about humans and humans on the battlefield and whether or not we may be entering a period where the last unmodified human soldier may already have been born. So it's a provocative statement, right? How do we understand human-machine teaming right now? So this comes from the Whale Songs of War article that is available at Marine Corps University Press. And the first one there that you see, that's as old as war and civilization itself. The human, and in this case, the AI or the tool, the human is in control of the tool. And so this started when the first human picked up a spear or a rock and used it for war, by creating war. And this goes beyond just murder or various activities that are violent but are not organized like war is. War coincides with civilization. So the first time that 2 civilizations or 1 civilization used weapons, they were in control. And that leads all the way up until today, where still today, with the latest sniper rifle, the human operator is still in control of it in that type of an arrangement. The second arrangement, though, that's shown there in the middle is something that's only come about in the 20th century and is with us now. This is where the human decision maker is on the loop. And the difference here is that you now have AI, or you have some sort of automated system. This began really in World War II. And this is where the challenge of naval ships and the operators with their anti-aircraft guns being able to gauge and aim their weapon systems at fast-moving planes at different distances, it just was too difficult for humans to just try to do it themselves. So they started using machine-aided systems, and then later we have in 1958 the first example of true human decision-making on the loop with the SAGE program, and that stands for Semi-Automatic Ground Environment, SAGE. This started in 1958, and it was these old school cathode ray tube type technology, the oldest of those computers, those rooms of computers. But by 1963, the system itself was irrelevant because Soviet ICBMs could just penetrate in ways that the SAGE couldn't prevent it. But that was what you have now. That was the very, very early version of what you have today with the Israeli Iron Dome. We just saw this very recently, the most complex drone attack in recorded history launched by Iran against Israel. And what protected them in a large part were these automated systems, the Iron Dome, Arrow 3, and David Sling, working together with pilots and human operators. The next one, though, is where the human decision maker is behind the loop, right? And what we mean here is that human beings abdicating greater control to AI or following in its wake, that we provide it programming, we try to do things. However, we're only able to come after the fact because things are moving too fast there's too many things in motion, and the complexity of conflict is moving the human operator, if you will, further and further away. And this goes back to Elon Musk's statement of future humans will sound like whale songs to the AI that are responding to them. So let me just close out of this, stop the show, and I'm back. So where do we go towards organic human beings being irrelevant in future battlefields? The challenge here, and this goes into different ways that artificial intelligence and new technologies are changing what's going to happen in warfare. It has to do with not just the tools, because we've been fixated on better and better tools for the last 40 centuries. The nuclear bomb is an incredible and terrifying ultimate weapon right now. So much so that essentially by the late 1940s, we entered a new phase of civilization where for the first time, nation states could not have or aim towards what Clausewitz called absolute war. That is where we go completely against another nation state or rivals, adversaries, and we go as much as we possibly can to defeat them. We throw everything we have possibly at another state to destroy and defeat them, right? But we can't do that in a nuclear age if our adversary has the ability to wipe us out as well. And so nuclear deterrence since 1949, when the Soviets cooked off their first nuclear weapons, and we had now a world where rivals had these weapons. Ever since then, we've actually had deterrence work, which means that nation states will now accept greater tactical defeats if nuclear deterrence is sustained, right? Never happened before for 40 centuries. Now we live in that world where one hand is tied behind our back. So that's important to recognize. These are tools. A nuclear bomb does what it's told. So it's a means to an ends that we've designed, we as humans. Now here's the shift. Here's the shift. AI and new technology may create new and more powerful weapons that can design their own ends beyond that of what humans designed in the first place. So before we go to AI itself, and this is where science fiction gets all crazy. We talk about the Borg, and we talk about Skynet and iRobot and things on Rick and Morty. And these are all in the articles too. I'm particularly happy I was able to sneak in a couple Rick and Morty quotes in some of my articles. But what we're talking about here is new cognitive abilities, and it comes within wetware, hardware, and software. So we're going to wetware first because we're talking about modified humans. So right now, all of us, your generation, my generation, we go into the war with the genetics and the body that we have. We are tied to biology, but we're different than animals because about 60 to 30,000 years ago, there was something called a cognitive revolution. And our species, for some mutation or reason, was suddenly able to come up with all these amazing things. We're able to imagine things that don't exist. So brief example, this is a cup of coffee. Everyone can see it, right? And we could actually train a chimpanzee to go and get us a cup of coffee. Or you could have your dog who carries hot coffee in the thermos underneath come and take care of it and fill me up. I want you all to close your eyes. For those of you that are listening later on YouTube, go ahead and close your eyes and do this experiment with me. So keep your eyes shut. I want you to imagine a magical stick that you could hold. It's an electronic device, and it's got a gravitational field. You stick it in the cup of coffee. You can pull the liquid coffee out, and it's wrapped around this stick, but you still can drink it. There's a little bit of resistance, but you can suck it off the stick. It keeps it warm, but it keeps it in orbit around this stick. Everyone, you can imagine that? All right, now open your eyes. And the point of that exercise is that everyone who's listening, who just did that, all of you might have visualized it in a different way, but you just imagine something that does not exist. That's what makes us different. And that's what the cognitive revolution meant, is that we as human beings are the only creatures on this planet that can conceptualize things that exist, cups of coffee, and things that don't exist or cannot exist, right? we are now being joined gradually and maybe rapidly by AI, able to do the same thing. So the new changes in warfare are going to be tools, but also things that change the way that we think. Now, how do you get there? So wetware is the first area that we can talk about briefly. This means that you as a human modify yourself. We either go into CRISPR, we're going to gene alteration, and there's a lot of ethical, moral, and legal issues there. Or you do cybernetics. We start plugging and adding things to your body. And this is in science fiction. If you watch The Expanse, there's great examples of this. The Borg are another great example. If you watch the Borg on Star Trek, that's wetware. They capture human beings or aliens. They capture anybody, and then they plug all these things into the wetware that they then control. All right, so there's a lot of ways that we can do this. The theory behind it, though, is that we right now are Homo sapiens, even the smartest humans. So Albert Einstein's estimated IQ is around 180. Sir Isaac Newton, same thing. So 180 is really smart, right? What if we could modify you so that you had a 250 IQ and you didn't go insane, or at least you didn't let us know you were insane, right? That's one way of what we're talking about, developing beyond the biological limitations that otherwise have governed us. So the first thing that humans broke free from, again, about 60,000 years ago, was we were able to think about things that don't exist, which is an incredible advantage because it opens up all these opportunities for us to do language, music, religion, politics, war, right? That's a human invention. We created war. The next cognitive revolution after that is where we are right now, with the ability to manipulate our own genes, the ability to manipulate our bodies and to be cybernetically enhancing ourselves. Elon Musk just demonstrated that with the disabled person who was able to move a chessboard, I believe, with their mind. And it's incredible. Neuralink is the next step on this, what's called either transhumanism or singularity. And so when we talk about singularity, that comes from originally a mathematician, Werner Vinge, and then Ray Kurzweil was the major proponent of that, continues to be a promoter. What is a singularity? It is the point at which our species is able to manipulate itself, wetware and hardware, so that we exceed the cognitive recognition of what our species is able to do, beyond Einstein, beyond Newton. And then there's all the physical ones too, like Universal Soldier is a great movie where we're able to manipulate dead corpses and animate them, and they have special, amazing soldier powers, right? It's all fantasy. It's all fantasy, but this goes down that road of transhumanism or singularity. So they're both kind of interchangeable terms. They're slightly different, but it means that it's a supra sapien. It's a creature that's beyond what we can do. It's thinking faster and better than you, and it's able to outperform you on the battlefield. So here's an ethical question for you. Do you think that a Western, democratic, liberal society would agree to growing soldiers, identify them before birth, manipulating their genes so that as babies they're born with enhanced soldier capabilities, and then moving them through a pipeline so that after they reach a certain age, they are conditioned and put through boot camps and technological capabilities, and then their job for their entire life is to be a soldier? Do you think we would do that? I'm getting a lot of head shaking. Right?
Probably not,
right? Maybe some legal, ethical, and moral issues. Okay. But think about it hypothetically, in the abstract. If you have two soldiers facing off, they're both in, hover tanks on either side of a conflict, and one soldier is like us, natural born human. They can maybe do 5 things cognitively at the same time, 5 to 7. Let's say they're really smart. We'll give them 7. The enhanced wetware and hardware of the modified human, 200 things. Who wins in that? It's not a sure thing, but statistically, there's a tremendous advantage to the human being or the transhuman entity that is able to manipulate 200 different simultaneous tasks rapidly versus 5 to 7. Now, let's frame this with strategic competitors, China, Russia. Are there countries in this world that potentially, if they see that advantage, would invest in those types of things, even though it violates a Western ethical, moral, or legal standard? Again, my own opinions. This is some of the 21st century challenges that are on the road ahead in the coming decades, if not now, right? Probably the seeds of it are happening now. And so there's also an element of wealth and access and class and power. Once wetware can be readily and safely modified, and both of you are young, but someday you may have families, you may decide to have children. And if you do that, if you could spend, say, $200,000 and you could guarantee that your children would have high intelligence, physically fit, resistant to disease, all sorts of capabilities. Oh, they'd be beautiful too, right? They'd be like the hottest versions of you, right? Not that we're not hot already, but you can always get hotter. And so people are going to choose to do this. Now, who's going to be able to afford it first? It's going to be your elites, your wealthy, the people that are in your upper levels that have access to that. So it's about power and wealth too. And then what is that going to manifest into mid 21st century in schools, at work, or on the battlefield? Wetware and hardware enhancements to Homo sapiens will change all of those things. And those that have those advantages are unavoidably going to be creating new conditions that don't really exist today. And it's blurring the lines between what tools of war that are designed with ends that are fixed versus a tool of warfare that no longer is tied to the designed ends that the human programmers or creators did to establish it. Now it's flexible. Now it can change itself. It's a nuclear bomb that can decide that it wants to go and learn poetry and go on a retreat, right? And that sounds ridiculous, but that leads us into AI. And so transhumanism and singularities, that's on the wetware and hardware side. If we go over to pure AGI and what's beyond that, which I talk about singletons, this is where we get into some really, really fascinating and terrifying changes for war itself. I'm going to pause there because I've been really rambling on here. What are you thinking? What are your thoughts?
I think that's